Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Den Haring. The channel is Fish Den 365, and today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start a new series called The Best of the Best, and the purpose of this is we want to create more value for our viewers. So we're going to try and take different lure categories and identify of those categories which are the best of the best. What lures are really the best ones in these different category of lures. One of the purposes of that is to help you decide what to purchase and what not to purchase. Perhaps in today's economy, money can be tight and things can be a bit difficult financially, so we want to make good financial decisions, and one of the reasons for the best of the best is that, and the other is we just want to be able to catch more fish, right? So why not try and identify what baits are better and why they may be better. And today we're going to start this with a very unique crankbait style. It's kind of an easy video for me to start with because there's just not that many of them to compare. And this is the style of crankbait right here. If you take a look at this, you'll notice that the lips on these are like a stair-step design. They kind of look like a square bill crankbait in their shape, but the lip design is very different. They have that stair-step shape. And why is that? So we're going to get into that. We're going to compare a couple of these baits. Right now, I'm aware of just only maybe 3 major manufacturers that are making these baits. I think when people find out, when these manufacturers find out how successful fishermen have been with these, my prediction is you're going to see a lot of new bait companies entering into the market and creating these stair-step lip crankbaits because they can be extremely effective under the right conditions. Okay, so one of the things about this is I've got 2 baits here. One is the Strike King Hybrid Hunter, and the other is the Sense Swank. Both very similar baits. We're going to compare and contrast in a few minutes. The first thing I want to do is just talk about that stair-step lip in general. So what does that stair-step lip do for this crankbait that, let's say, a regular square bill can't do, like this Strike King square bill? Well, if you notice, the Strike King square bill crankbait has a lip that's roughly at a 45-degree angle. So when you reel this in, it's going to want to go down at that 45-degree angle, and the bait's attitude will kind of continue that way, even though it's coming straight through the water. The thing that makes the stair-step lip crankbaits different is that they'll go down a little bit, but then they'll stay steady in the water column. In other words, they won't have that attitude where they're shaped like this. They're much more coming in straighter as they come through the water column. They're meant for shallow water. They won't go very deep, but they do have some very good characteristics. Now, one of the things that people really like about the stair-step lip baits is that they're really good in the weeds. And I agree with that too, although I will say the square bill is probably just as good. It's just that that attitude makes it go down and dive deeper. But if you fish this the correct way, it'll back right out of those weeds, or you can rip it through. So square bill comes through the weeds quite well also. But so does the stair-step lip, and it's coming through. It's a little bit easier to get this one to go through or above the weeds because it doesn't have that dive that's continually trying to go downward. It's more coming in on a horizontal plane. And both of these things, this one's called the Hybrid Hunter because it has a very good hunting action. When we say hunting, what we mean by that is when you're reeling the bait back towards you, a bait that hunts tends to go off to one side but always tracks back to center, and might go off to this side, but it always tracks back to the center. And that's important because if it just went off to one side, it would be out of tune and it doesn't look right that way. But when it goes off to the side a little bit and back to center each time, that is that hunting action, and fish, it's a known attraction for fish. The Hybrid Hunter does that very well. So does the Sense Swank. It also has that very good hunting action. Now there are different sizes for these baits, and we're going to take this underwater so you can actually see how these 2 baits compare underwater. But before I do that, I just want to tell you what's available out there and maybe talk a little bit about prices as well. And for that, I'm going to need my notes because there's so many different options here. The Hybrid Hunter comes in a junior size and a regular size. This is the junior. It's roughly 3 inches and about a ½ ounce. Now they also have a junior shallow. It goes even shallower than the regular junior. and it's said to weigh maybe just a little bit less. I really think it's they probably tune them, and some are just shallower than others, and it's pretty much dependent on where this lip ends up being when they install the lip. The regular junior is supposed to dive 2 to 4 feet, and that would be depending on what size line you're using. The junior shallow is 1 to 3 feet. Now they also have a 1 ounce, 3.5 inch version of the Hybrid Hunter, and that is said to dive 3 to 5 feet. When it comes to the 6 Sense bait, there are two. There's a smaller size, which is 66 millimeters, and a larger size, which is actually this one, which is 77 millimeters, which is very close to 3 inches. These two baits, size-wise, are very similar. Lengthwise, they're almost identical. Very, very similar baits. The 66, the smaller one for the 6 Sense, is 2.6 inches, and it's said to dive 2 to 5 feet and be a 1/2 ounce. The 77 is supposed to be a 3/4 ounce. It also dives 2 to 5 feet, but it's a larger size, which just happens to be the size that we're going to be comparing today. We're going to use the 6 Sense Swank 77 versus the Hybrid Hunter Junior. And those baits are very similarly sized, so we'll have a good way of comparing when we go underwater. Now, I've been fishing the Hybrid Hunter a little longer than the Swank, and I've had a good spring on it. It's a very good bait to throw in the spring when those fish are moving shallow in the weedy and rocky areas. And it's also a good lure to fish right now, coming into the fall. So I was out yesterday fishing both of these baits. I'll show you how we did here right now.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you think the others that may come to testify,
big bass
at the end, do you think one of those might be a hostile witness?
Oh, it's a big
one.
one.
I still don't really know exactly what that is. Is that just someone who is called to testify who doesn't want to be there? I'm going to throw you some names.
Here in a while.
The Cassidy, of course. Yeah, but there are others that are way more hostile. Like UAP Gerd talking to Chris Ramsey said that the most hostile one right now would be somebody like Bobby Ray Inman or Lakatsky. I believe that if any names are added like that, they would be without
beautiful largemouth bass here on the Hybrid Hunter. That's the kind of fish you can catch. That's a beautiful fish. Thick, 4-pounder at least. Not real long, but thick. Nice fish. There's a fish. Oh, another good fish. On the Swank. Little bonkers. Come on in here. All right. Well, the Swank is another stair-step lip lure that catches bass very well, and I like it quite a bit. It casts beautifully. So the Swank is a bait that I just started fishing, but I really like this one as well. And you know, there's a reason maybe to have both of these baits, and we'll get into that as we go further with this video. I'd like to take you now to the underwater footage so that you can see how the baits behave underwater and how they work in that hunting action. In most of the cases, we don't have them hitting the bottom. I wanted to see how they worked with a fast stop and go retrieve through the water column. Obviously you can hit weeds, wood, any kind of cover, and that's just even more of a triggering effect. One thing you won't notice in the video is any sound. It's because the video that I'm using underwater is soundless, but they do both have rattles. This is the Hybrid Hunter, and this is the Swank. They are very different with their rattles. And so that is a reason why you may want to own both of them, because if it's the right bait to throw for the conditions you're faced with, let's say you've got 4 foot of water and the weeds come up to 2 feet and you don't want to go any deeper than 2 feet, or you have real shallow woody cover like I did yesterday, these are the baits to throw. They don't go down so far, and yet they have really good hunting action. If one doesn't work so well on a particular day, before you try and change bait categories completely, you may want to try the other bait because of the sound difference. That could make a difference when you're fishing for bass on any particular day. So let's take you underwater now. Okay, so you saw how the baits perform underwater. Which one do you like best? Which one is better than the other? Do you think, do you see any differences? What do you notice about how one works versus the other? One thing I can say is that they both cast very well. You can throw these a good distance, but the Swank has the edge because it's a little heavier and it's more streamlined in its shape. It doesn't have, it's just, for whatever reason, it's heavier. It's 3/4 ounce versus about a 1/2 ounce. So I can throw this further and easier, especially in the wind. So I like the Swank on maybe a windy day where it might be a little harder to throw that bait. The other interesting thing about these baits is the price. So the last time I checked on Tackle Warehouse, the Hybrid Hunter went from $6.97 to $10.99 depending on what you were buying. There's a lot of color options. Take a look at all these color options for the Hybrid Hunter. And some of the, I think some of the ones that don't sell so well were the cheaper ones. At Discount Tackle, the Hybrid Hunter sells for $9.34. Now, in contrast, the 6 Sense Swank is not available at Discount Tackle, but at Tackle Warehouse, the price ranged from $5 to $7.99. So overall, the Swank is a couple bucks cheaper. And so that may factor into, if you only had to buy one, I mean, I can tell you they both work. Maybe that's the one you go with. Now, these aren't the only two baits out there with this stair-step lift. There's another player out there that has the stair-step lip for many, many, many years, and that's the Rapala, the shallow shad wrap. Even the big shallow shad wrap has a real big stair-step lip, and the smaller baits have that stair-step lip too. They're shaped differently. I believe they are balsa. I'd have to check on that, but I doubt that they have rattles. I have not fished those in the same way that I fish these. I've fished those in colder climates, and they don't dive very deeply either. But if you're interested, let me know, and I will I'll spend some time fishing that lure under similar conditions to these two, and give you a comparison with that bait as well. What that price is, how that bait works. Without the rattles, that can be a whole new factor. And I have a few of those baits that I can play with at any time. So let me know in the comments if you'd like me to check out the Rapala Shallow Shad Wrap. Well, because there's just not that many players, you know, I like having both of these because I do think that they have, different ones have different advantages over the other. The rattles, for one, in the Hybrid Hunter are very different than the Swank. And because of that, I like to have both those baits and just let the bass tell me what they want on any particular day. As far as the action goes, they both work great. They both have a very good hunting type of action. Again, that Swank is a bit cheaper. But I think in these cases, this was an easy best of the best because there are only a couple players and both of them are very good. So looking at these, and probably that Rapala too, I just haven't had a chance to take a look at that. These are certainly really good baits that you may want to consider having in your arsenal, especially if you're a shallow water fisherman that fishes shallow weeds and a lot of fallen timber and shallow wood and stumps, things like that. Well, if you like the content that I'm giving and you want to help me out, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. That'll give you a notification for when the next video is coming out. That helps my channel. That helps me get my videos in front of more viewers. It's deeply appreciated. I love the community that we have here fishing. Keep it tuned here. We have a lot of good content coming up. Can't wait to get back out there and do the next series of Best of the Best. Until then, be safe out there, and as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.